12. The camera. Camera checkout station. After your group has created a complete storyline, grid, and set of narrative cards, you can check out a camera at this station. A volunteer will brief you on the basic function of the camera. All editing must be done in the camera. The order of the shooting will be chronological, strictly dictated by the order and detail on the grid from Workshop 2. Properly following the grid will ensure a successful shoot. You have 1 hour to complete this stage. The camera person should exercise caution when preparing to shoot a scene. He or she should hit the record button after yelling "Action!" Otherwise, the command will show up in the group's film. There is no retakes. 1 take, good take. Note, don't forget, perfection is the enemy. It will lead to discouragement. Mistakes, repetition, and stuttering will be all the more fun to watch at the end. The camera person will direct the action of each scene by reading the storyline sentence and description of each scene from the grid. The camera person can shoot the whole scene in 1 take or segment it with different angles. It is recommended that you try to respect the flow of the conversation and remember at what point in a dialogue you stop recording in order to successfully resume. When the group is done filming, turning the grid, storyline, or narrative card, as well as the mini DV tape. After you have turned in these elements, you will receive a blank VHS box to decorate. Only the camera person could hold the camera and was required to personally return it to the checkout station stand. When checking out the camera, they received a brief tutorial and an explanation of the rule for shooting. The main rule for the camera was that all the editing was done in the camera. This is another key feature of the protocol, and it bypasses all the whole post-production process. Basically, when the last shot is done, the film is ready to be screened. There is no messing about. This in-camera editing technique always reminds me of funny moments when my son Paul was shooting his horror movies with my little brother Roman. They would spend so much time worrying whether the door was closed or open in the previous shot. During screening, it was precious to hear his pre-adolescent voice whispering, "No, wait, no, go, yes, I'm filming." Shooting with my friend at H Project, we too were gratified by this magic moment. Tony, the camera person, even though he was not allowed to be part of any scene, managed to have the best one-liner of the entire film. How? Well, we were preparing a scene where Miguel, his wife, and the whole documentary crew, led by Tim Robbins, squeezed into the orange beetle to continue the investigation on the way to the mysterious proctologist. We were about to shoot the exterior version of the car in front of a moving background, and we had to find a line for Miguel to say off camera to pretend the sound was coming from inside the car. We couldn't find anything interesting enough, and Tony, in his British way, just said, "I am a hitman, do you have a problem with that?" A hit line for a hitman. But how did he make it into the final film? Tony had forgotten to stop the recording of the previous shot, and shot his feet for at least 5 minutes while we were rehearsing. The anti-grid function addressed this problem in early VHS cameras, when people were not well acquainted with the technology. So when it was our turn to watch our movie, we had an extra 5 minutes to endure. But Tony's delivery was well worth the waste of time. It turns out we were not the only one who made this mistake. In fact, it was the most common error of the entire process. I guess cameras stopped carrying the anti-grid function a little too early. In the future, we must reinforce the rec-pause-rec technique. Another frequent problem was due to overzealous individuals whose professional aspiration ruined the experience for the rest of the group. Here comes our friend Professor T again. As I mentioned before, he clearly had ambition to become a filmmaker. So the rec-pause-rec technique didn't meet his professional standards. He had to rewind the tape after each take to check the quality of the performance. Disbelief and disappointment were on everyone's face during the final screening where they discovered that a large portion of the film was missing. Their teacher had recorded over them by mistake. In another instance, a professional director of photography asked millions of questions about the camera that our staff thankfully couldn't answer. Then, instead of just shooting, she spent 10 precious minutes, the shooting was limited to 1 hour, messing with all the settings. And after that all, she committed the deadly ground shot error. Better is the enemy of good. Later, the unfortunate director of photography came back and begged us to reform her group and give her a chance to redeem herself. She said her mistake had ruined her relationship with her friends. We complied, but once more she failed. This reinforced my point that often the most incompetent people could be found in the middle of their own field. Like me reading this book, for instance. But overall, the shootings were a collection of delicious and hilarious moments. In the day the East Side stood still, giants versus troll. After landing in their flying tent from outer space, the two young trolls, played by two young kids, made their way by train over the East River to scare all the adults of Manhattan with their troll swords. Their parents, playing the part of the giant, used the miniature train in the wrong way to create the illusion that they were huge giants. In the porno horror musical flick Night of the Erotic Moon, Kenny Page, the street sweeper truck driver from Passaic, was assaulted by a horde of 40-year-old women he had just met an hour before. And who could forget about all the boys, girls, and even grandmas giving birth to paper cut-out babies, monsters, ducks, bombs, and weapons in the doctor's office. Never has there been a gynecologist who had witnessed so many outbursts in his private practice. The most hilarious memory of our shooting was when Tim Robbins, suddenly engrossed in his filmmaking role, let slip a "Wait a sec, we are crossing the line here." We all laughed at how obsolete his comment was in the general chaos of our shooting. Among the most memorable shooting, Warm Soldier was by far the most visually interesting. It was done by a group of lesbians who brought in a carload of props and radically redesigned each of the set with neon-colored cloth. We were in a meeting in the back about this very book when they arrived. Rafi had stepped out to take a call. When he came back, he asked, "Is it okay that people are bringing their own props?" I said it was fine, but he responded, "Maybe you should take a look at this then. They've got a lot of stuff like live chicken." The other gallery goer who peered into the back alleyway, originally intended to shoot police chases, saw a bunch of naked women with unshaven Venus mounds on the live chicken. Their male musician friend had set up a noise band to create the tribal hypnotic score. They used the camera in a very unorthodox but creative way. They recorded 20 minutes of their naked bushy bodies wrapped in transparent plastic film, rubbing against the corridor like preborn babies, sperm, eggs, who knows. Then they rewound the wall tape and recorded over it randomly, adding scenes of an acrobatic pregnant bride, two twin girls covered in pink paint and this queen tied together with a handmade umbilical cord, and colorful close-up shot from inside the plastic neon pink tubes. This was the closest thing to actual art that we encountered, and it was totally good-spirited and unpretentious. Congratulations. In fact, this film was by far the most requested film at the Beacon Video Store. For educational purpose, I believe. Funny to mention that when he came back to Brooklyn to help me with his book, Jordan ended up living at their house for educational purpose as well. Of the 122 films shot, only a few were left incomplete. Most groups found ways to overcome obstacles in order to finish the film. For example, the main character of Which Witch Whacked the Witch had to leave in the middle of the shoot for dinner. The group wanted to finish, so they agreed they would just kill him in the story, so the plot could resume without him. As the shooting progressed, the group would become more excited by the reward, the viewing part, as they could hear the laughter for the previous group screening their creation. Like in a dentist's waiting room, except with laughter. No one abandoned the project because of technical difficulties. They always use creative and simple solutions to solve this problem, making their film more special in the process. In fact, the ingenuity grew more elaborate over the months, as if the group were challenging one another. In Doggone It, which features the news station Fox News, instead of using a digital news ticker, the group wrote small headlines on a skinny piece of paper and had someone sit underneath the camera and move them across the frame. A few films after that, a group took it one step further by doing its entire film with paper subtitles.